And welcome, everybody. My name is Mickey Fitch Collins. I'm a human skills facilitator here at Learnit. And I am so excited. We have so many folks joining us in on the audience here. I want everybody to go ahead, stretch those fingers out, get ready to drop some comments over on YouTube, drop some comments here on LinkedIn, get ready to participate in today's new leader lab. I want to welcome everybody who's here, all of our new to manager folks that are in the room, all of the folks that are stepping into people leadership for perhaps the first time. Welcome to the exciting and super challenging world of management, supervision, performance management. This is a huge, significant milestone in your career. The first 100 days as a manager are absolutely critical when it comes to setting a tone that is positive, that is forward thinking, that is strategic, and just generally setting up that strong foundation. And today, I am so excited. We have an amazing power hour to help support you through that new 100-day leader journey that you're going to be going on. Let me go ahead and explain our structure, and then I'm going to introduce our fantastic guests. The first 20 minutes or so, what's going to be happening here is I'm going to be sharing some tips and some tricks that are backed up by some research, some things for you to know and do during your first 100 days. And then what we're going to do is we're going to switch gears. I have my friend and our amazing support partner, Kelsey Kelly from Point B is here. I'm going to switch gears and we're going to I'm going to ask her some questions. We're going to get into a conversation with Kelsey here. And then the awesome thing is that all of you out there, we got some fantastic questions that came in. I had that Microsoft form that was linked onto the LinkedIn event for this. We had a bunch of questions come in. And so time pending, we'll kind of see how many of those questions that we can get into. I do want to remind folks that I will be monitoring the chat. So if we have any comments come in via YouTube or LinkedIn, please go ahead and drop those comments in there. If they're good ones, there's some great questions, some great comments. I'll go ahead and bring those in onto the screen here. But before we get into all of that goodness, I want to make sure to go ahead and introduce the ever amazing, look at this, 2 pictures at once. We have Kelsey Kelly here. There you are live and there you are up on the screen, Kelsey. Kelsey leads learning and development and employee experience at Point B, which is a mid-sized consulting firm. And her role is to shape a lot of company-wide strategies that drive growth, engagement, and connection. She focuses on all different types of learning, especially rooted in human interactions. I will tell you, if you don't already follow Kelsey on LinkedIn, you absolutely need to. She is the icebreaker queen. But beyond just doing icebreakers, she drives and implements a lot of different initiatives for her fellow employees at every level at Point B. Her expertise spans instructional design, leadership development, and change management. And her role is really about ensuring that learning is both impactful and aligned with business goals. So Kelsey, thank you so much for dedicating your time and energy to be with us for the next hour. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. We have so many questions. I have a bunch of questions. I know the audience has a bunch of questions. But before that, what I want to do is go ahead and jump into some of those tips that I've prepared for you for new leaders. And now these tips come from a variety of different research that's out there, some of the best practices, and also, frankly, from some of my goods, bads, and uglies of things that I've done over the last 25 years. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through these 6 different tips. And we're going to start first with building a leadership launch pad. Think of your first few weeks of being a new leader like launching a rocket. I don't know about you all, but I am always watching those launches for SpaceX and whatnot. And it's so exciting, but it's also so worrisome. But I want you to think about it like a leadership launch pad. You don't need to have all the answers strapped to your back, but you do need to fuel structure and you need a few smart systems. Without having that stable base, even the absolutely best intentions are going to wobble. And so a couple of action steps that I want to offer to you. First of all, write down your 3 launchpad pillars. I would suggest to you mentors, feedback, and reflection. Who are you going to call when you're stuck? Not the Ghostbusters, but who are you going to call when you're stuck? Number 2, what does feedback rituals look like? What are you going to do to check the pulse with your team? What are you going to do to check in with a mentor? What are you going to do to check in with one of your supervisors? And also, when each week are you going to spend time intentionally pausing and reflecting? I encourage you to take action, set these things up because future you is going to say thank you. Coming back to those top tips, the second one we're going to take a look at is what can we do to turn curiosity into a power tool? Okay. Oh, pardon me. We're going to actually go to confidence as a muscle. I messed up my slides a little bit there. We're going to talk about confidence as a muscle, not a trait. A lot of people think of confidence as a personality trait, but it's actually a practice. Most leaders kind of wait to feel ready, but the spoiler alert is that most people don't actually realize that this doesn't arrive on its own. Confidence is something that grows when you do the hard stuff, not when you ace it. I actually put together this picture of thinking about confidence. I know Kelsey is a power lifter, and we've been having some conversations about that. So I put together this lifting image here, kind of thinking about what are those brave behaviors that we can take. And so I encourage you, action step for this is to take some brave behaviors. Lead the scary meeting. Give the direct feedback. Delegate an important task without micromanaging. Write it down, do it, and reflect on whether or not it was perfect, but what did it do to help you build confidence? Coming back to those top tips for new leaders, what we're going to get into next is looking at clarity. I want you to create micro moments of clarity. Your team doesn't expect you to be a fortune teller. In fact, if anybody does, they're out of their mind, right? But they do need you to shine a flashlight when the road ahead is getting foggy. In uncertainty, I really do believe all of my years of experience have led me to believe in times of uncertainty, clarity becomes the absolute superpower. It doesn't require you to have certainty, just a repeatable way for people to help feel grounded. Micro clarity steps. And so I have a clarity formula for you to use kind of in your next update to your team, the next conversation that you have in a staff meeting. Okay. First of all, and you'll see it on the board there, here's what we know. Second, here's what we're figuring out, or here's what I'm figuring out. Third, here's what I'm focused on right now. Here's what we're focused on right now. Those moments of clarity, micro moments of clarity, way stronger than those moments of certainty. Coming back to those top tips again, the next one that I want to talk with you about is a leadership log. I want you to document what you're learning in real time. Leadership, I always tell people, is basically an unpaid internship in problem solving under pressure, right? You're going to learn this faster than you realize. But the thing about it is that we only learn if we pause to reflect. I said before, your future self will thank you. This is absolutely something your future self will thank you for. The next leader that you coach, the next team that you supervise, record the things that you're learning. And so the action step I would encourage you, either grab a pad of paper, open a document, a Microsoft OneNote notebook, whatever it is, start a leadership log. I did this for many, many years. Every single Friday, jot down one win, one challenge, and one big insight. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. In an entire year, that becomes a leadership playbook for you. The final tip that I want to offer to you is to not confuse busyness with impact. Whoops, pardon me. I messed up my slides again here. Coming back to curiosity. You think I do this as a job, right? Turning curiosity into a power tool, okay? I think a lot of new leaders often fall into this, I should already know this, right? Trap, right? But leadership isn't about having the answers. It's about asking better questions, right? Curiosity isn't about being naive. It's about being strategic, okay? It earns trust. It helps uncover different blind spots for you. It models kind of, the kind of culture where learning isn't optional, that it's expected. And so the action step that I want you to take with this one is to pick a question that you'll start every one-on-one or team meeting with this week. And any one of those questions are great to pick from, but a couple of suggestions I would offer to you. What's something that we're not talking about enough? What's something that is harder now than it looks? And then listen, right? Because your job is to listen. Now, finally, we'll get to that last one. And that final tip that I'm going to offer to you comes back down to not confusing busyness and impact. Early leadership absolutely can feel like a buffet, right? You want to taste a little bit of everything, but the real impact is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. The impact is what's on the top of the mountain. The busy work is the stuff in the foothills. You can't serve your team if you're buried in everybody else's to-do list. And so the action step I want you to take every single Monday, I want you to go ahead and ask yourself, what's one thing? What is the only thing? If I do this, it's going to move us forward, right? Block time for that. That is the moment of impact. Block time to be working on that impact thing, that thing that's going to move the needle forward. And then delegate, defer, reschedule, deprioritize, or dare I say it, delete the rest. Now, those are the 6 tips that I want to offer to you today as we think about being new leaders. And in this moment, what I would like to do is I'd like to go ahead and have the opportunity to get into some Q&A with our amazing guest, Kelsey Kelly. So Kelsey, welcome again back to things. I'm so excited to have you here. We've done some podcasts together. We've done some events together. We've been spending a lot of time together. We're going to actually be together in person in a couple of weeks here, but I'm so excited to have you here in this format.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And thank you for the great tips. I actually had to jot something down. You said leadership is problem solving under pressure, which I think we inherently know, but I drew a line and I said, isn't that parenting? And so many of us who are on this call or listening can probably think, wow, okay, wait, even if I'm a brand new leader, maybe I've done this before. And it really points to other things in our life. So I thought that was really cool.
What a great, I mean, like that's such a great transferable skill set kind of recognition of a lot of the things, whether it's parenting. I oftentimes talk about project management, and I encourage people to think about painting a room or gardening or moving homes or whatever it is, right? These transferable skill sets, you're absolutely right. Like we can find this stuff in a lot of other places. And so maybe we are new to leadership, but we aren't necessarily new to some of the skills of leadership. I think that's a great point.
Absolutely.
So Kelsey, I have a bunch of questions, and then our audience has a bunch of questions too. So we're basically going to spend the next 45 minutes having some conversation here. And I want to start, we named this event about kind of building trust and growth mindset and confidence. Okay. So I want to start with a question of what does growth mindset really mean to you in the context of being a new leader, right? When we think about being in those first 100 days, where does growth mindset fit into that?
Yeah, I think that's a really great place to start. Growth mindset can mean so many different things. Oh, I just saw a comment. Fellow powerlifter. Hi, fellow powerlifter. I love that. Sorry. Always be learning is my answer to that, though. So growth mindset, it can mean growing your business. It can mean growing your skills. It can mean growing your team, right? But you have to start with yourself. And so you have to recognize that even though you just got elevated to this position where, yes, your expertise does matter. There's a reason you got where you're going. Don't ever stop learning. There's never going to be a ceiling for the things that you can learn. You will learn from the people that report up into you. You will learn from people who are above you. You will learn from your peers. And if you never stop learning and you always carry that with you, all of the other things will come. Like the confidence will come and the building the trust with your people will come. You just have to lean into the fact that it's okay to never stop and never be at the finish line with your own learning journey.
So Kelsey, I'm curious, what are 2 things that you could share with our audience that you're learning right now? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Personal or professional?
Okay, that's fun. I'm learning how to do sourdough, so I'll start with the personal one. Obviously, we talked about I'm also a powerlifter, so that's learning a skill every day. But powerlifting, I learned it and now I just have to get better. And so I was like, let me try something new. And I always do this. I think it's the ADHD in me if I'm being completely transparent. Learning how to do sourdough was not easy for me. I hate cooking. So that was very interesting. On the work side of things, I'm just really pivoting into AI. How can it actually help me? What am I missing? What am I not seeing? And just really trying to lean in on that side.
Awesome. Awesome. I appreciate you being willing for me to throw you a little bit of a curveball there. I'll get you connected to my wife too. She's a big sourdough baker. But yeah, we have Cynthia here. Again, I put that comment in there as a fellow power lifter. So hopefully the two of you get connected and you can talk about lifting afterwards. But yeah, never stop learning. I love that. I mean, it's such a bumper sticker sort of phrase, but I think it's so true, especially for anybody in the audience, right? Learning and development professionals, HR folks, talent acquisition folks. I mean, the big part of our job is to help other people learn and grow, but we ourselves also need to be engaging in that regular learning. We don't want to be in stagnant sort of places.
Absolutely.
What are, when we think about being a new leader, and, I'm kind of going back in time when I was fully brown haired instead of brown and gray haired here, those first couple of setbacks that I experienced, or those first couple of setbacks that you experienced as a new leader, what are some tips that you would offer to new leaders to take those setbacks and turn them into strategies for the future? Like basically thinking about growth mindset, thinking about turning things around. How would you encourage people to do that?
Yeah, so I think the two things I would say are stay humble and fail quickly. So on the stay humble side, if you make a mistake, own it. Also, if you succeed, share the credit. It's leadership is less about perfection and more about modeling accountability. And then on the fail quickly side, I think I say this for probably everything, but it's so transferable. Don't be afraid to let go of what isn't working and pivot quickly. And the faster you try new things out, just experiment and adjust, the quicker you'll get to what's actually going to work for you and your people.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I'm sure you've heard of the sunk cost fallacy, right? That people they put so much time and energy into something and are just kind of grunting through something, even though they know it's not the right direction or it's not the right thing. And I think you make such a great point, which is to fail quickly and just kind of own, you know what, this isn't working. This doesn't work. Let's just let go of it and move on. And I think so much of that, Kelsey, is like ego stuff, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's hard because you got into this position, you have that shiny new manager title, and part of you wants to lean into that ego side because sometimes ego feels like confidence, but you really have to have the humbleness to go along with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the greatest challenges, and you just named it, is, you get appointed into that new leadership position. You're like, yeah, I got this title and, the new name tag, the new team, new role, whatever that might be. And it is easy to fall victim to your own, ego mentality to what that means, instead of kind of recognizing that mistakes are going to happen, missteps are going to happen. We're going to need to change and pivot, and it's not the end of the world, right? Of kind of what can we do to think about worst case scenario and work backwards from that?
I think it's not just yourself. Like, you as a human will make mistakes. We are all very unique, and it happens on a day-to-day basis, but so will your team. So make sure that you're giving yourself grace for the mistakes you'll make, but give your team grace for the mistakes that they'll make as well. And then that's kind of how you balance the scales on that one.
I love that. Yeah. Grace, humility, really good traits to have. I think more people need those traits, I think, in all levels of leadership, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of the other traits that I think you and I probably would both agree on that's really important in leadership is resilience, right? Resilience, particularly coming back to that, operating under pressure. So how do you build and stay, or build and maintain resilience, especially when you're giving or when you're receiving difficult feedback from other people?
So when it comes to the feedback, I think the resilience is going to come from treating that feedback as a gift, plus using your discernment with that. So you have to notice your own triggers. Am I triggered from this feedback because I have a relationship with this person and the previous relationships haven't gone well? Or am I maybe embarrassed because I know I'm in the wrong and I didn't really want somebody else to see that in that moment either? So my cadence with feedback is always, you want to thank them first, pause, and then reflect. So buy yourself time. Hey, thank you for the feedback. I would love to get back together on this topic. Can you give me about a week and we can reconvene? You don't have to answer in that moment all the time. You want to sit with your emotions long enough to learn from them. Again, it's like parenting, right? We're trying to teach our young children to do the exact same thing. Just make sure that when you do that, you're not shutting the door on future opportunities for that feedback, because that very person could be giving you future continued gifts for you to be able to grow yourself as well.
Yeah. That phrase like feedback as a gift, right? I think a lot of us have heard that. And actually right before this, I was facilitating one of our give and receive feedback workshops. And I was talking about that is like, we've all kind of heard that phrase like feedback is a gift. But I think a lot of us look at it as like that gift that you're looking for the gift receipt. Like, how quickly can I turn this back in? How quickly can I give this back to somebody else? But again, if I can reference back what you said before of humility and grace and patience and all of these pieces, and giving yourself pause and time to reflect. Even if I could come back to what I said about the leadership log, right? What can I do to take a note in there about a challenge that I experienced or feedback that I got, and like, what am I going to do with that? How do I actually kind of dissect that to really understand what do I do with it?
The other piece is sometimes not every piece of feedback needs action taken. I would say most do, but every once in a while you'll get a piece of feedback that truly isn't coming from a good place, or your actions maybe were right, and you have to have that discernment to be able to step back and say, is this person right? Am I right? Maybe honestly, usually the answer's in the middle, and it's not he said, she said in that situation. And we have to make sure that we can use discernment in those situations as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great point is this right? Is it true? Is it true right now? Is it true for that person, but maybe not for me?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there are situations I think sometimes where people give us feedback, and I just shared a story earlier of somebody giving me feedback, and I was like, actually, you don't have all the information. And, we don't need to come back and say, oh, you're so wrong because you don't have all the information, but we can just come back and say, hey, let's have a conversation about this. I could totally understand why you came to me with that feedback, but here's some other pieces of information that maybe you didn't know. Right.
Absolutely.
Kelsey, circling back to the concept of growth mindset. When we think about having a growth mindset and being a new leader, could you maybe kind of dig back and walk down memory lane a little bit? Can you share some experiences of maybe when you had some obstacles for your own self having a growth mindset as a leader?
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out to me the most, and many people can probably relate this day and age, is when the economy and the resources didn't necessarily align with my expectations. So I was ready for a promotion, or I wanted additional training, or I wanted to go to a conference to expand my skill set, and the business couldn't support any one of those asks, right? And so I think it's easy to fall into frustration, or, hey, my growth is stalled. And I think that the challenge there, like the mindset challenge that you want to overcome, is not letting that frustration turn into disengagement, especially when you are in any kind of leadership position and other people are looking to you. So shifting to say, okay, I don't have the perfect circumstances, but what can I do with the resources I have available? And it's starting to get really creative. And the more creative I got with my own learning and being able to grow my skills, and how many podcasts can I listen to? How many books can I read? What can I use with free resources? Not only was I able to expand my own growth and my own skills, but I was able to learn a lot more for what I do, right? I help other people learn. We're learning professionals. And so I was able to show other people that too. So not really letting yourself get bogged down by circumstances, which aren't always going to be ideal.
Yeah, I think, it's growth mindset. I oftentimes, as you were describing that, I think about kind of the locus of control versus our locus of impact or influence versus the things that are entirely outside of our control. And yeah, how do you reframe some of that stuff and say, there's an opportunity in here, there's a silver lining in here that maybe I don't necessarily know at face value what that is. But, as you said, podcasts, books, I tell people all the time is like, make sure that you're connected with your local library. I think a lot of people think like the local library is just where you're getting all of your romance novels from, but your local library has a ton of resources, and in fact has access to probably a bunch of the books that are sitting on your wish list and stuff too. And that costs you nothing. Right. And, podcasts, Kelsey, you and I walk in the worlds of lots of podcasts, and, you've been on our Learnit Lounge podcast and, many others. And, so these are resources that people can use to help them with growth. Even like you said, even when there's challenges, economic challenges or other obstacles that maybe exist, for sure.
Yeah, maybe hot take too, but don't discount like ChatGPT or AI saying, hey, teach me how to, and speed up some of the learning. Sometimes the resource I'm missing out on is time. It's not always money, it's time. And so helping yourself get somewhere faster is also an opportunity to continue that growth mindset.
I love that. Yeah, that's such a timely example. I was driving back from a I had a lengthy drive yesterday from a medical appointment, and I was just doing the verbal chatting back and forth with ChatGPT about a particular topic, probably for almost an hour, right? And and the vocalizations obviously are so human-like, and it was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm in the car by myself, but am I really, right? And in that process, I was actually going through and I was learning something new about a particular topic that I hadn't, hadn't had the time to really fully explore. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Super timely.
Yeah.
Let me pivot a little bit to a topic that comes up oftentimes when we do these new leader labs, which is psychological safety. When I'm a new leader, there's a lot of things that I need to learn, but I also need to project a level of confidence and competence, right? Where does psychological safety fit into all of that stuff of the job of being a new leader? Kind of how do you create spaces of psychological safety with those that you supervise? How do you also exist in psychologically safe spaces as a new leader?
Well, I think that right there is the key is you're having to do both. I don't think anybody would question the fact that it is essential to have psychological safety, but it does start with you. And so you can't create it for your team if you don't have it for yourself. And so are you surrounding yourself with peers and mentors that are being able to provide good examples? Or when you have a bad day, do you have somebody that you can go to and explore the ideas before you react to them? It's not easy if you're up against a culture that doesn't have it, and that's something that is well beyond my level of expertise to explore. But as long as somebody is sitting there and exploring, do I have this for myself? And if I don't, how am I fixing myself before I'm going to try and give that to others? And then from there, it comes back to a lot of that honesty and humility and just really creating those spaces. How you had talked about your 3 questions that you want to go into the team and give them just enough clarity, right? So we're ending the meeting, or we're starting the meeting with curiosity, we're ending with clarity. And when you keep repeating that pattern, you will start creating that psychological safety, not only for yourself, but then for your team.
I really like the cadence, the pattern, right? The questions, and I appreciate you tying back to what I shared before, but when people feel, some of us love structure more than others, but I think structure helps people have a sense of safety, right? Because what it creates is predictability and I know how people are going to show up in the space. I know how these meetings are going to run. I think like all of us, there's a comfort in that, and that comfort can lead to psychological safety of like, yeah, it's like, where are moments where I can be curious? Where are moments where I can say, hey, everybody, this didn't go well, or I'm really struggling with this, or is anybody else having a hard time with this? The modeling of that too, I think, is what's really critical. Like as a leader, is not just being the sage on the stage and being like, I know everything, or like pretending like you know everything, but actually saying like, I'm not totally sure about that. What do you know? Right.
Yes, we need to take that I know out of the vocabulary, because even if we think we know, sometimes we don't. Find a new way to say that one.
Yeah. There's a number of different phrases I feel like we need to like pull out of the leadership lexicon of saying I know, or I've been there, or something. And it's like these sort of things, like they're these unintentional but like very anti-empathetic sort of statements of like, we're trying to be in colleagueship with other people, but what we're doing is actually saying like, my experience is better than yours, or like, I know everything and you don't, and not helpful, right?
Yeah. Or discounting the environment around that person. You may be in a very similar situation and it looks the same on surface level, but when you get under that, into the weeds, into the underneath part, it's not the same.
Yeah. So let's go a little bit further with that. And we've kind of referenced this a couple of different times here, but how do you, oh man, and this, even asking this question kind of takes me back to a couple of different experiences I've had. How do you lead when you're not sure if you have the quote unquote right answers?
I think we've said it a few times, right? It's being honest. It's saying, hey, I don't know, but I'll find out. And I think that the really important key to that is stay accountable. So if you say you're going to get that answer, find a way to make sure that you get it. Make sure that you have enough time built into your schedule. If you're a leader who has back-to-back meetings all day and you promised your 9 a.m. that you're going to have an answer, where are you fitting that in? How are you getting that information? Do you have proper documentation? Did you jot notes down that when you come back to, let's say, you promised them that you would get them the answer by your next meeting? Well, do you have kind of that recap? Are you sending an email? What is your solution to that? And that's going to look different for everybody, but you have to stay accountable when you give a promise for that. but always still lead with that humility, lead with that honesty. You don't have to have the right answers. And in fact, I think it'd be a disservice if you tried to have the right answers, because then you're doing exactly what you said earlier, where you're taking on all of the stuff. Don't get into everybody else's to-do list. You don't need to have the answers. Somebody else does. And the way that your team will work better is if you trust everybody else to have their piece of the puzzle. And when you all come together, you can see the big picture.
Yeah, it's like a follow up and follow through, right? And it's not necessarily make things up, right? Yeah. Follow up and follow through. But you know what? I mean, the unfortunate thing is I think many of us, and yourself, myself, we've probably all worked with or worked for people that, fake it till you make it sort of stuff. And it's like, that doesn't really work out. I, for one, I much prefer when somebody says, I'm not entirely sure, but give me until the end of the day to get back to you on that one. Yeah. It's human.
And giving that time helps too, letting them know when you'll get back to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, humility, grace, psychological safety. I mean, we're building a structure here, and I want to throw in confident and supportive in there. How do we project and live confidence and supportiveness early in our work as leaders? Like, how do we, and not the fake it till you make it sort of stuff, but where do people generate confidence from? Where do people generate supportive natures from as new leaders?
So I truly believe that it starts with knowing yourself and then knowing the people on your team. So you have to understand, what do you need? Where do you naturally default to? So every single person is unique and everybody needs something different. If you as a leader are naturally authoritative, for example, but your team really needs maybe more of a coach, there's a time and place for both of those, but you have to be able to be adaptable and pivot to the one that is necessary in that moment. I think that teams tend to feel your confidence better if you're leading with them and not just over them. I think people want to view it the opposite way. They want to think it's like that time old picture where one leader is like dragging the team behind them and the other is like following from behind it and pushing the pack, kind of like the wolf scenario. Maybe it's an alternative picture. Maybe you're just literally standing in line with them, and that's where they start feeling your confidence, because they feel like you're in it with them just enough that you know what they're doing, but that they can still look to you when the times shift and they really need you.
Yeah. I love that idea of like being in it with people, not away from other people. I think there's such a palpable difference between feeling like somebody's watching over you versus somebody who's experiencing along with you, right? And knowing what some of those challenges, what they actually feel like from like a lived experience right away. Yeah. Kelsey, I have one more question before we move over into, we got a pile of questions that came in from our audience, but one final question. I asked you something kind of similar on our episode of the Learnit Lounge together. But for this audience, I want to ask you the question is, what is a leadership lesson that you wish that you had learned early on in your career, maybe even in those first 100 days as a new leader?
Yeah, so I think my answer will still remain very similar. And the podcast is not released yet, so nobody will have heard it. But being great isn't enough. You have to be seen. And I think that's so important that people recognize, especially in leadership, that doesn't just mean yourself, it means your team. So it's not enough for your direct reports just to do really great work. If all of a sudden you're the one saying, hey, I want to promote this person. Okay, well, are you helping them be seen? Are you showing their work to the right people? Are you helping them self-advocate and teaching them about their own personal brand and how they're showing up, whether that be at work, on social media, just like their own self? But you have to do it for yourself, right? So now you're in this unique position. You have to learn how to do it for you, and you have to be able to coach others. And isn't that kind of like the whole premise of leadership? That's really what we're trying to do. Same with parenting, right? We're showing up like, hey, I know what I'm doing, but I'm learning as I go. Teachers are the same way. Learning professionals, we facilitate. We're still learning, even though we're the ones sharing the content. So I think that is really what will matter most and will have the greatest impact.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. I love that. And yeah, good reminder for me. We recorded but not released yet for that episode that's coming out. Will be coming out later this month. But so I want to switch, Kelsey, over to some of the questions. We got my goodness, well over a dozen questions. In fact, we just got a couple more that have come in over the last couple of minutes, which is awesome. So I'm going to throw a couple of those at you. We talked about the concepts of confidence and humility, and so we don't need to belabor the point there. But there were a couple of questions that came in, and I love this, is kind of thinking about energizing teams and motivating teams. Particularly, one question that came in was, how do you re-energize employees or teams when people have just kind of seemed checked out, or they're just kind of doing the day-to-day stuff in their jobs?
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to really that uniqueness of everybody needs something different. So I think that also everybody is motivated by different things, and you sort of need to start finding out, what does that employee need? Maybe they're just really unhappy with their job, or maybe they just feel like it's mundane. Maybe you can have them be exposed to other work. Maybe there's a project that somebody else really needs help on it, and you can be that connection point to help them get started. But I think it all starts with a conversation. I think every single employee can probably list a list of things that have to get done that maybe they really don't enjoy, but hey, you got to get them done anyways. And a list of things that they maybe really enjoy and they probably would want more of. How do we balance that? Like, how can we start giving them more of what they love to do, and maybe helping them find ways of getting the things that they maybe don't love done more quickly, or maybe somebody else also loves that, and you can start being that connection point for people.
So it's kind of, as you describe this, I mean, part of it is about the relationship building and kind of deepening that relationship. But I think the other part too is about delegating, like, if I'm hearing you correctly, like delegating skills and projects and tasks out to things that kind of charge people's batteries instead of kind of decharge them, right?
It could be, right? If that's what the employee is truly motivated by, and hopefully it is. I think sometimes, unfortunately, the answer is that employee just really isn't happy with their role. And I think that we as leaders have to be okay with that too. I think naturally in our mindset, we're like, well, everybody wants to move upward and everybody wants to do this. Well, that may not be the case. Maybe your employee is currently in an HR role and they really want to be in accounting. Maybe it's a matter of you're making that connection, and we have to be okay with that. That doesn't mean that we as a leader failed them. It's that they're a unique human who wants experiences that do fill up their battery.
Yeah. I can remember, as you were describing that, I can remember a conversation that I had with one of my closest friends several years back. And there was a vacancy for the position that was kind of hierarchically above her. And I was like, "You're applying for it, right?" She's like, "Absolutely not." And I was like, "What? Like, why wouldn't you go for this role? Like, you'd be the decision maker, the director of the department, blah, blah, blah." And not to mention, title, salary, da, da, da. And she said, "I am perfectly happy. I love being an individual contributor. In fact, I want to be a lifelong individual contributor. I don't want to be managing other people. I don't want to be making strategic decisions. I want to keep my work in the weeds. That's what I love. That's the stuff." And I was like, that was so mind-boggling to me at that stage in my career, because I was like always, I was the vertical ladder climber at that point. And it was such a good wake-up call for me to have that conversation with her, and it changed the way that I had conversations with my own team too, of not assuming everybody's coming after my job or they want my boss's, job or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thinking about, again, coming back to growth, a lot of our organizations, some organizations out there are experiencing growth. I was just having some conversations with some folks earlier today that, they're in this like hyper growth, hyper hiring, just massive growth. I think a lot of organizations out there are really in belt tightening, layoffs, reorganizations, right? With that, regardless of which direction, it's change, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's change and it's a growth period. How do we, as new leaders, how do I convince my team? This was such a good question that came in. How do I convince my team that this change or this growth is going to be beneficial and good, even if I'm not totally sure of what the true outcomes are going to be? What advice would you offer there?
That's an important one, and I'm sure a lot of people are feeling and experiencing that. And I certainly might even be in the middle of this myself. I'm just always experiencing constant change. So maybe I'm not the expert in this one, but I have perspective. get to know your business and your leadership extremely well and understand some of the decisions that are being made. I think we need to recognize that we as leaders have to go through our own change curve, but unfortunately, we have to do it simultaneously while we're managing those under us who are also on a change curve, and those can be completely different change curves. But it is really hard to get behind and stand behind a business and leaders if you don't know what's happening. So make sure that you are connecting with the business, connecting with leadership, showing up to calls, and just really living into that. Because I think when you arm yourself with that knowledge, it's a lot easier to say, okay, yes, we are going through change. Here's what I know. Here's what I don't know, but we're all in this together. And when we remind people that, like, hey, you're not alone. I know you may be feeling this, or this change might be ambiguous, and we really don't know what's coming. But the nature of the relationships, the people around us, which is most often why people stay, aren't changing. Even when they are, right? We may lose some coworkers due to shifts, new ones may come in, and that piece does change, but you can continue to build those relationships. And as long as you have the information plus the relationships, usually it ends up okay in the end. And the only other piece I would really say to that is just try and as much as you can lean into that positivity. Even when everything feels like it's falling apart, there has to at least be one good thing in that day. So if you need to start your day that way, if you need to end your day that way, jot something down. What was something great that happened today? And even if it was, hey, Mickey was smiling when I got on the call with her today, and that was like the best part of my day, cool. Like, lean into that, and that's okay too.
I hope that does end up on somebody's list. Yeah. You're so right though. I mean, there is significant research out there about a gratitude practice, right? I mean, this is something I learned from one of my good friends, Randy Barker, years ago. He was a staff psychologist at one of the universities that I used to work at. And he was the first person that kind of presented some of the research out there about how impactful, not only to our brain connections and kind of activity and stuff, but how impactful that is to our life view when we engage in a daily gratitude practice. Especially amidst change, right? Because what we're looking for is we're looking for the life jacket and the lifeboat, to kind of like, stay safe in the waters of change, and kind of the tumultuous nature of change, even if it's a good change, can still feel worrisome for people. One of the things that you said that I want to kind of underscore for listeners, kind of bring back out too, is this idea that relationships matter, and getting closer to the people that, the higher ups, the decision makers, and kind of understanding like what decisions are people making? How do they make those decisions? Because I think it's really easy for us to be like leadership, them, those people, right? Well, if you've ever been, for anybody that's out there that is one of those people, is, one of those decisions, you are a human just like everybody else. And so coming together in that relationship, I feel like that's so important. And that's such a great skill set to learn as a new leader, is these are other human beings that are having to toil with difficult decisions. So get to know those folks, and also keep yourself in their sights, because you could be somebody that's really helpful to them too.
Yeah. And I think the one thing I would want to add on to that is, don't try to put yourself in their shoes. You don't have all the information that they had. And unfortunately, there's a lot of times where those leaders can't share all of the intricate details that went behind those decisions. So it's really easy for someone to say, well, if I was in their shoes, I would have made this decision, and this would have had this impact. But you don't have all of the underlying other impacts that went along with that. So it goes along with feedback too, right? Like, try not to put yourself in their shoes, and try not to be a complainer. Be the person who comes with new ideas. So if you're frustrated with something, that's valid. That is an emotion, and we all feel it. And you may not like some of the decisions that are happening, and you may be frustrated by the change, and you want to make an impact, but lead with that curiosity and say, hey, this is my view. And oftentimes they will have a conversation with you and say, hey, I really appreciate that. Here's why we couldn't do that, or thank you so much for sharing. But if we come at it just trying to attack, like we're fighting from inside our own walls. Like, we don't want to fight with family. And I know some people don't like the family term when it comes to that, but it's decreasing that us versus them wall.
Yeah. I love this comment that I brought up. Thank you, Cynthia, for this. She said, learning that they have to put their pants on one leg at a time makes them more personable. And I think that's so critical, whether you're an early stage leader or for anybody who's in a senior or executive sort of role, of just that recognition that like these are human beings too, that are toiling with a lot of difficult decisions like you are as well. And so, I mean, there's a lot to be learned from that. I love that you said kind of leading with curiosity and kind of leaning into how does this happen, but not sitting from a place of judgment or complaint, but from a place of curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the virtual world does change things just a little bit. It's a lot easier to be in person and have empathy with that person. There's a lot of things that some people wouldn't say in person that they might feel behind their computer screen. So for those who are virtual, that putting your pants one leg at a time, the other saying a lot of people lately have been saying is, are they even wearing shoes? Right? I'm sitting here as an expert on a call and I have cow slippers on and I wear my cow slippers every day, and those close to me know that and they love that about me. But it doesn't matter if I'm talking with the CEO or if I'm talking with a peer. Like, I have my cow slippers on. It's not that serious. We are all just human. It's going to be okay.
We've got two Wisconsinites in the room here. Yeah, you have cow slippers on, and I have some Packer pants near me. I'm not wearing them right now, but I have Green Bay Packer pants near me. So there we go. Wisconsinites in one room together. So, Kelsey, one of the things I love is habits and rituals and daily practices. And we got a great question that came in from the audience about what are some habits or what are some of those daily practices or rituals that new leaders can engage in consistently so that they can help kind of avoid some of those bad stages of burnout?
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a little similar to my last one with the positivity piece, but I think there's two aspects of this. So I would say positivity and productivity. So first, I would say tip the scales on the side of tip the scales on the side of positivity. So if you're having a really negative day, find that way to bring in the gratitude. I know so many people are like, oh, really? Like that again? I'm hearing that again. There's a reason it's in so many books and in all the research. I have learned that you can't have both anxiety and gratitude existing in your brain at the same time. So yes, seriously, whether you're starting your day or ending your day or in the middle of your day, you need to think of 3 really great things that are going on, even if it's personal. Hey, my daughter looked really great this morning and she was cute at cheerleading or something, right? Like we can think of those really positive things. And then on the productivity side, it's really finding what works best for you as a leader. So one thing that I noticed is I like to block the first hour of my calendar, and that's my time to go through all of my emails and get prepared for the rest of my meetings for the day. If I jump into meetings right away in the morning, I feel like I'm behind and I'm catching up all day. So that's my way of doing that. Some people are like the zero inbox person. I can't do that. It just doesn't work for me. I can't get my inbox down to 0 every day. I wish I could, but if that's something that works for that person, then that's what it needs to be. So it goes back to what I've said many times. You have to get to know yourself. What is going to work for you? What makes you feel like you're being productive? What makes you feel like you're staying positive? How are you interacting with your people? And as many times as you find something that's draining you, find something that's going to fill you back up 3 times as much.
I love that. Draining times 3 in reverse. Yeah. One of the, I'm going to mention another common term that a lot of us hear, imposter syndrome. One of the things I think a lot of new managers face is this feeling of imposter syndrome. And as a newer manager, right, you're getting a lot of feedback from people above you, maybe getting feedback from people to the side of you, you're getting feedback from people below you. And I think all of this can kind of exacerbate this imposter syndrome. I'm going to be found out as a fraud and, I don't actually know what's going on. And so we've talked quite a bit about resilience, but where does resilience and growth mindset help you kind of stay focused on the real stuff rather than kind of giving in to the chatter of imposter syndrome?
I mean, imposter syndrome is real, right? I felt it. I saw a lot of the posts for this and I kept seeing somebody list me as an expert. I'm like, am I that? And for me, it's me recognizing that I've just had a lot of opportunity, and I don't necessarily believe in luck. I think that luck is, I was so prepared at the right time and somebody gave me that opportunity that everything worked together for good, that I was able to be where I'm at. But I have this privilege of working and learning, and I get to meet with experts who have come before me, who will come after me every single day. And I gather all that information and I keep learning for myself, right? And so when I'm remembering that I'm still learning myself, and any level of feedback is still just a growth opportunity. And so I can take it or leave it, and I get to choose the gift that I want to open or leave. I still get to listen, pause, and reflect, and still follow that same cadence that I had talked about earlier. But also thinking about the fact that if somebody chose to give me feedback, or I saw something about me in any way, that person cared enough to be invested in me. And I got myself to a position where I was seen. Did I get it right? I don't know. We're batting 50-50, right? But the more times that we get that at bat and we get to try, at least we're moving the needle for ourselves. And so I think that we have to take this concept of imposter syndrome and just kind of like lean in harder, fail faster, right? Just kind of go for it and say, there's a reason I am where I am, but I want to make sure that I don't have that mentality of, well, I'm above anybody. I want to still like bring the people up. Stay with that humility side as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're bringing such good common currents through all of this, the humility, grace, gratitude, being real, right? We had I want to put this comment up here, come from my boss man, Taryn Bridget. Zero inbox is like my watch, and sleep metrics just makes me feel bad that I can never quite pull it off. Your sleep sucks and you've got a lot of emails in the inbox, buddy. Get it together. I love that. Thanks, Taryn, for that comment. There's real life for you. Talk about psychological safety. That's my boss. So master. Yeah. Kelsey, I can't go an hour. You know this about me. I can't go an hour without talking about AI. And I feel like nobody can really go an hour without talking about AI. When we think about being a new manager, what are some of those AI and you've used this term, I've heard you use this term before, AI adjacent skills, right? What are the most important AI adjacent skills that new leaders need to know here in the back, quarter of 2025?
Yeah, I've been throwing that AI adjacent skills out a lot lately. And for those who don't know, it's your skills that are going to pair with the computer where you can be better together, right? Because technology can't fully replace us. There are things that are human skills. I've said it to you before, right? Soft skills are actually the hard skills, in my opinion. I think we're going to see this big shift back into those and needing to develop those more. But what are the most important ones? The top two that are going to come to my mind are decision making and discernment. So I know I've already talked about discernment a little bit, but we're at a point in corporate that we need to start making decisions more quickly, but we have more data and information than ever. We need to own our decisions so that people can get through their change curves, but we need to be able to do all of this quickly while discerning all of the actual facts. So we need to be able to sort through the data, which we now have too much of. And we need to be able to separate useful information from the noise without blindly trusting the outputs that are being given to us. And I think that the third that's coming very close with that is empathy, because we have to start balancing that technology with humanity. And I think if we pair all three of those things, we have this superpower that a computer, that technology can't take from us. They can't replicate or do anything that it's taking something away, but we're enhancing everything. We're getting more quickly to the areas that we need to get to, while remembering that we work with humans at the end of the day. We don't just work with technology. And so all of the human uniqueness that we've talked about this entire time, giving good and valuable feedback, building those relationships, which is just absolutely imperative in the corporate environment, but in any environment today, you can't have those things with just the technology side alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. Very well said. So we had a couple of questions come in right now during the event here, and I want to toss one of those out to you. We'll see kind of where we're at with time. I think this might have come because I mentioned that you are the icebreaker queen. But this is maybe a little bit more of a question for you as an individual, Kelsey, maybe less so about new managers, but there's definitely a connection there. What are some examples of some effective team building exercises that new managers could lead, and why? Why are those effective?
So my favorite team building activity I'll talk about briefly, and I'll kind of tie it to the icebreaker thing. I'm going to start with the icebreaker side and why people call me that. Really fun fact, quick fact about me, I absolutely hate icebreakers. And that's so funny that I say that because I'm the icebreaker queen, right? So what I mean by that is I absolutely cannot stand walking around the room and doing human bingo or saying like, do you prefer crunchy or creamy peanut butter? And then you have the person who comes in and goes, I'm allergic to peanuts. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like now this is a really awkward conversation, right? And so I believe that icebreakers need to like have meaning and impact that actually carries through. So what I really dislike is activities that are throwaway activities. They were just like a time crunch. We're just trying to throw something out there. Yes, sometimes it has like the fun or the laughable impact. But I like something that has meaning and can carry through for what we're doing. So when I create like this big elaborate icebreaker that I build from scratch, and I have done that multiple times, and I'm actually doing one this week. I get to do one on Friday, so it's very near and dear to my heart. I have that continuity throughout the entire agenda from whatever meaningful thing I created from the icebreaker. So with that same philosophy that I hold, that something should have meaning and impact throughout, I like to do team building activities that actually matter, so that you're learning something about your team, that you're figuring out how your team works best together. I would say one of my favorites, and you can do it virtually or you can do it in person, is the what's on my plate activity. And so if you're in person, you literally take like a paper plate and you hand somebody a Sharpie, and they just start writing everything that's on their plate. And you have them do, their work side, their professional, like everything that they have going on at work, but also their personal. And when we start building empathy, so that's where this whole activity comes in, we start recognizing what other people are going through. So, somebody may say, wow, Kelsey has not responded to my email. I can't believe she hasn't done that. When in reality, just a few months back, my inbox was probably like over 500 every single day. And I was the sole caretaker of my grandma who was on hospice. And I was a single mom at the time. I was transitioning into engaged/married life. And I was trying to integrate my households. Like there were so many things going on in my personal life that I didn't have that time to invest more time in work to be able to get my inbox down to zero, right? And so had somebody seen that and they're like, wow, I did not know that about Kelsey. I didn't know that she was going through all of these things. Or even on your team, you're like, well, why is she saying that she needs a week to get this project done? And you look at the work side and the task list, it's like, wow, I had no idea that there was all these other admin and things that were being bogged down. And when we start having those conversations and the connections, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I know how we could automate that. Why are you still doing it that way? Let me show you. We're missing a lot of those things virtually, especially. When I learned how to like even type, we learned about like the Control-C and things. But when I'm trying to train somebody, they're not seeing my hand movements. They're not seeing how I'm doing things on the computer. So they're missing out on some of those things. But when we start having conversations, then we can start seeing what is on other people's plate. There's other activities that you can do like that, but I would highly recommend anything you pick, try and have something that will have an impact for your team, while adding a little bit of chaos that adds fun. So if there's a way that you can make it funny, make it relatable, make people just laugh at work and be able to build better connections, ultimately, that's kind of how I see icebreakers. It really should be building a connection for people.
Yeah, Darren brought in another comment here. Good icebreakers are such a good shout out to something that seems small but incredibly important to do well, not a throwaway. In the Learnit land, Darren is the icebreaker king. Fun fact for everybody out there, I sent a little AI generated image of Kelsey to her the other day with a fantastic little crown because she's the icebreaker queen. That's a little bit about our relationship there.
Hey, it's going on LinkedIn next week, so I can't wait for everybody to see it.
That's right. One other question, actually, I'm going to bring this up from Darren, and then we're going to wrap ourselves up. What's another example of a small thing that new managers shouldn't just blow off or skip, but actually invest in and do it right? Such a great final question.
Building trust with their team. Everything else starts there. So don't skip the, hey, how's your day going? Don't skip the, oh, what's your dog's name? I hear him barking in the background. Don't skip the congratulations on your new baby. Even if you don't feel like you have the time to build those relationships, if you don't, everything else it falls apart. Everything else will crumble. Responding to people when they try and react or reach out to you, but do it in a way that you keep yourself sane. So if you're getting 100 emails a day, just saying, hey, I'm really behind on emails. Friday, I'll be able to catch back up on this. Did you need something sooner from me? Or, hey, I really prefer Teams chat over email. If you could just send me a chat if it's urgent, like let me know that way. Don't skip that really good communication side along with the trust.
Awesome. Well, Kelsey, there's some love that I'm going to put up on the screen for you from some folks here. Really appreciating some of the things that you brought to us today. It's time for us to wrap up. And if I can summarize, I was just kind of thinking and jotting some notes down here. If I can summarize our conversation here today, Kelsey, humility, ongoing learning, and leaning into relationships. Those are the three big things that I feel like you brought to us today. And I really, really want to say thank you so much. Kelsey Kelly, coming from Point B, everybody who's out there, we got a bunch of folks on LinkedIn and YouTube watching us. Please make sure that you go ahead and connect with Kelsey. She's doing some fantastic stuff. She is very active on LinkedIn, does some really fun kind of teasers of some of the work that she's doing that's out there. So I want to say thank you so much for being here again. I think the task in front of us as new leaders is really clear. I think, again, leaning into humility, leaning into ongoing learning and those relationships. Please, everybody who's out there, kind of last call to action for you. This LinkedIn Live in particular, as well as YouTube, this is going to be recorded, or this is recorded, and so you can watch it over and over again. And I would encourage you, if this was really impactful, go ahead and go out to LinkedIn and create a new post and bring this recording in there. Tag a couple of your friends. I challenge each one of you that's out there to go ahead and tag 2 or 3 different people that you feel like really need to use or to watch this video. In fact, this is a great thing, I think, this conversation to build into different onboarding processes for organizations too, for people to learn from an expert. And yes, Kelsey, you are an expert, to learn from people about what we should be doing as new leaders. And so again, thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Again, my name is Mickey Fitch Collins. I'm one of our human skills facilitators here at Learnit. Appreciate everybody so much being here. Thank you, Kelsey, for taking the time out of your busy day. I'm so looking forward to seeing you in just a couple of weeks. And everybody out there, thank you for taking the time out of your day. If you want to connect with us at Learnit, please go ahead and head out to learnit.com. Send us a message. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a message. And again, thanks everybody for being here. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. And we'll see you next time in the New Leader Learning Lab. Thank you.